It's the biggest metropolis on Earth. Nearly 14 million people live here, in a city that never sleeps. There's delicious street food and a buzzing nightlife. You're unlikely to be mugged, and theft is rarely a problem. Welcome to the world's favorite capital, where good etiquette is always observed, and where humans are only half the story. From its humble origins on Japan's east coast, Tokyo has seen a few changes. Once a small fishing village, it has grown relentlessly into one of the world's busiest and most technologically advanced megacities. Now a powerhouse of industry and commerce, it's better known for its wild nightlife than its wild animals. But look beyond the bright lights, and it's apparent that Tokyo also moves to a different beat. A natural life cycle that begins each spring with an iconic spectacle. Cherry blossom, or sakura, is a national obsession. But as well as lifting people's spirits, it's also a bittersweet reminder. For more than 1,000 years, the short-lived petals have prompted the Japanese to reflect on the fleeting beauty of life and to make the most of the time they have. Ever since it became Japan's capital in 1869, Tokyo has been spreading. Now almost 100 kilometers across, it's a vast amalgamation of over 50 towns and cities. And yet somehow it contains a wealth of animal life. One of the keys to this paradox is something distinctively Japanese. Shinto, the way of the gods, is the original faith of the Japanese people and is as old as Japan itself. It's based on a belief in sacred spirits, or kami, which can often take the form of plants or animals. That's why Shinto shrines are always associated with trees. Throughout Tokyo, hundreds of small shrines provide important habitat for animals. But the largest by far is the Meiji Jingu Shrine, right in the heart of the city. Created in 1920 to venerate Emperor Meiji and his wife Empress Shokan, it involved the planting of 100,000 trees, donated from all over Japan. A century on, and this self-sustaining forest is now a quilt of over 230 different tree species. The shrine attracts a constant stream of visitors who come to ask for good fortune, alongside the priests who worship here. But all this human activity is kept within narrow limits. The 70-hectare sacred forest that surrounds the shrine is restricted access only. And away from the crowds, nature is left undisturbed. As well as sheltering woodland birds, this thriving oasis is a haven for countless insects, rat-hunting snakes, and an obscure pond dweller. The soft-shell turtle. For sheer beauty, there's surely no contest. Its wing covers have been used to make necklaces and dresses, and even to decorate a royal palace. Such is the allure of the Japanese jewel beetle. Beyond the sacred forest, new kinds of green space are popping up in the city. Farms were once cleared to make way for skyscrapers. Now they're becoming part of the urban fabric. As well as providing food and cooling the building on which it sits, this rooftop rice field in central Tokyo is giving city kids a chance to connect with nature. Just like a traditional paddy field, this high-rise version is teeming with frogs that were brought here in the soil. Every spring, farmers show the children how to plant the rice seedlings. Four months from now, these budding urban farmers will be back to harvest what they've sown. In Tokyo, space is at a premium, which can leave many animals without a home. Along most of Tokyo's waterfront, factories, roads and runways have replaced natural beaches and squeezed out much of the wildlife.
もう鳥にとってこの東京湾というのはものすごく変わってしまいました。で、東京湾中を干潟というのがありまして、干潟なんかは多くの生物たちが住むことができましたし、小石たちが餌を取る。
Dr. Kitamura, who heads up Tokyo's Little Turn project, is trying to ensure that these endearing birds still have enough space to breed. To give them a fighting chance, volunteers have built a 6-hectare substitute beach on the roof of a sewage works.
そうですね、最初なんかこの小アジサシのことを知らない水再生センターの人たちに実際に小アジサシがいるというのを見せてからはすごい協力的な人が水再生センターの中に出てきたのですごく話は進みました。
Building a beach was just the start. Now, every spring, Dr. Kitamura and his team have to persuade the birds to use it. And that requires a bit of trickery.
最近の子どもたちっていうのはなかなかこう自然に触れ合う機会っていうのがない。なので子どもたちに手伝ってもらうようにしています。
Guided by master craftsman Haruo Uchiyama, The children play their part by making dozens of look-alike little terns. The finished decoys are scattered across the roof. And to complete the illusion of a busy colony, a large speaker plays the sound of chattering terns. Primitive though it is, the birds fall for it. Having learnt from previous years, Dr. Kitamura and his team now cover the rooftop with little refuges.
シェルターって呼んでますけれども、ヒナが身を隠す場所。
The faster a chick finds cover, the more likely it is to survive. 3 weeks is all it needs. As long as the adults keep bringing back food, the young terns will soon be big enough to fly.
とりあえずこの場所に関しては、小石たちを守るという目的でうまくいっているのかなというふうには思っています。
Giving them space to breed is undoubtedly helping the terns. Although some will struggle, others will fledge successfully and follow their parents out to sea. Although little of Tokyo's original shoreline is left, the waters beyond are still untamed. And you might be surprised at what's beneath the surface. Whale sharks, the biggest fish on the planet, are regular visitors. Few people alive know these depths better than Hiroyuki Arakawa.
81歳です。62年潜ってます。
Fascinated by the ocean since he was a boy, he claims to have spent more than 3 years of his life underwater. Nowadays, Mr. Arakawa's main concern is for those who earn their living from the sea, especially hard-up fishermen. Tokyo Bay is known for its deadly storms.
遭難したんですよ、船がね。それが転覆して沈んじゃったわけ。浮いてたわけ。浮いてる状態だから船内には人が入ってるわけ。7人。それを続けてこうやって上に上げていくわけ。強烈な印象。涙が出てきてね、たまんなかった。
Over the years, Mr. Arakawa has helped to recover more than 100 drowned men and women.
すぐ忘れられちゃうだろう。じゃあ何か一つに固まってやろうと。
Aside from facing storms, fishermen in Tokyo Bay have also been wrestling with an unusual shark problem. It's a problem that dive operator Kan Shiota knows all about.
魚の最後のこう入ってる網を上げる瞬間の映像なんですけども、映るんですけど、サメが結構毎日定置網に入ってて。
As they thrash about, trapped sharks damage valuable fish, like flounder, which then go to waste. Some frustrated fishermen were starting to mutilate the sharks, which is when Mr. Shiota was approached with a novel request.
で、組合長がサメを餌付けして定置網に入らないように できないのかみたいなこと言われて、それぜひやらせてくださいっていう。
Using the fisherman's unwanted catch, Mr. Shiota set up a shark feeding station. Before long, it was attracting not just sharks, but shark enthusiasts. Believe it or not, there are people willing to pay good money to get nibbled by sharks. The feeding station is located just offshore, well away from the fishermen's nets. The sharks that you're most likely to encounter here are banded hound sharks. Typically, this shallow water species is nocturnal and solitary. But since they're fed twice a day, the sharks tend to hang around. And encouraged by regular handouts, they've learnt to trust humans. Known as the Shark Scramble, this mass gathering has to be one of Tokyo's most amazing wildlife spectacles. The sharks are joined by grouper, stingrays, sea bream, and a whole host of smaller fish. Despite physical contact, no shark or stingray has ever harmed Mr. Shiota or his guests. Just as importantly, though, the sharks are no longer a problem to the fishermen. Not long ago, hundreds of these amazing creatures were being netted, and some even suffered the removal of their fins. Today, the number of entangled sharks is virtually zero. Summers in Tokyo can be noisy as well as hot. Most animals would probably prefer a quieter spot, away from the crowds. Yet the evening shoppers in Shibuya are not alone. Strange creatures are emerging from the earth, right in the middle of the city. Slow and ungainly, they are still only half-formed. To become the finished article, these cicadas are about to cast off their old outfits and get a whole new look. For the past 5 years, they've been biding their time underground, sucking nutrients from the roots of ornamental trees. Instinctively, the cicada larvae now start to climb. By emerging at night, the insects are safe from birds. It now begins its 5th and final molt. Free from its old straitjacket, the newly hatched adult prepares for life in the open air. Its wings, unfurled and ready for use, will help it to evade predators. But with only a few weeks to live, it has little time to find a mate. It's no wonder cicadas make such a racket. Nearby, in the grounds of a Buddhist temple, the stage is set for a more gruesome drama. Death is something we must all accept, no matter who or what we are. Jumping spiders hunt insects and kill them with a venomous bite. But even with eyes in the back of its head, it isn't safe from larger assassins. Enter the gecko, a carnivorous lizard with a taste for spiders. Geckos are like mini superheroes. They leap off buildings and walk up walls. And to escape the clutches of a predator, it can shed its tail and grow a new one. Yet even this little ninja is not immortal. Next up, the praying mantis. It is more than 10 centimeters long, and its lethal moves have inspired a martial art form known as praying mantis kung fu. Impaled on the insect's legs, the gecko succumbs to a grisly fate. The mantis won't need to dine for another month. But to stay alive, this killer too needs to watch its back and steer well clear of the temple toad.
放松自己，感受每次呼吸，探索内在，体验每个脚步，亲身领略世界最后一片真正的荒野。
For humans at least, Tokyo's streets are blissfully safe. Even petty crimes like theft are extremely rare. Unless, that is, you happen to live on the edge of town. In certain suburbs, there are gangs that specialize in daylight robbery. Japanese macaques might look adorable, but as any vegetable grower will tell you, they're a menace. The raiding party includes adults of both sexes. Each knows its place in the hierarchy. All the way up to the alpha male at the top of the tree. Once his troop is safely across the road, the boss scopes out the lay of the land. His peanut snatchers need to keep their wits about them. Several of these repeat offenders have been tagged to help the authorities keep them under surveillance. Dodging the monkey police is only the first step. To get the goodies, they must also outsmart the farmers.
顔も認識してるし、でそれから車の音、周りを見張る猿がいて、でここ安全かどうか猿が先に来て安全と見たらその後に今度荒らして回る、要するに収穫する猿がこう出てくる。その組織がすごいよね。
朝早くで夕方6時帰ってからまた頭に。
Simple nets are easily bypassed, prompting some growers into more fancy countermeasures.
電気柵をしなければいけないような状況。
10,000 volts normally does the trick. But any chink in your defenses, and sooner or later, it's vegetable carnage.
ピーナッツをここに作って網かけたら、もう芽がちょっと出たらゴルゴルゴル食べちゃう。
To make matters worse, their eating habits are an insult.
ネギはこんな感じで猿が食べていっちゃう。一番美味しいとこだけ食べていっちゃう。猿は一口食べてポイだから。恐ろしいね。
While monkeys are roundly resented, there are other animals here that are welcomed like royalty. Not long ago, the Japanese goshawk was on the endangered list. But after years of protection, this fearless hunter, once a favorite of Japan's emperors, is starting to recolonize city parks. To stay healthy, a young goshawk needs a meal a day, and it's the father, smaller and more agile than his partner, who does most of the hunting. As hard as he works, though, the youngest chick often loses out. Ten days later, and now in her juvenile plumage, the baby of the brood leaves the nest to try her luck elsewhere. Still unable to fly, she has a whole new world to explore. On foot. Each year brings its own goshawk drama. And this year is no exception. In a potentially devastating development, dad has gone missing. The mother now faces the formidable task of raising her family alone. And the crows are determined to make her fail. They sometimes lose their own chicks to goshawks, so when they spot a weakness in their enemy, they are quick to take advantage. By joining forces to harass the mother, they can prevent her hunting. If the crows keep this up, it won't be long before the young hawks starve to death. A week later, and the three siblings are still alive. But their mother isn't managing to bring back enough to feed them all. With each passing day, the youngest chick is losing strength. If a meal arrives, it's always one of the older chicks who hogs it. Survival favors the selfish. Sometimes, however, it can also favor the brave. The crows have returned, probing for a chance to inflict more damage while the chicks are unguarded. With little hope of being fed by its mother, the youngest hawk does something truly astonishing. None of these seasoned observers has ever seen a young goshawk attack a full-grown crow. In the end, though, size and strength are decisive. It's the crow, battered and dazed, who escapes with its life, while the hawk, exhausted from her efforts, slips closer to starvation. Yet, amidst this tragedy, there is also hope. The eldest chick, well fed by its mother, is soon strong enough to hunt for itself. And there is every reason to think that these charismatic birds are here to stay. It's not only goshawks that are making a comeback. The Tamagawa is one of the two main rivers that flows through Tokyo. Barely a generation ago, factories and homes were dumping so much waste into the water that it was known as the River of Death. But with tougher laws and better management, the Tamagawa has been transformed. Pacific redfin spend most of their lives at sea. But to breed, they need clean, fast-flowing water. And now that they have it, they're coming back. In their thousands. Unfortunately for the fish, news of their return appears to have spread. Cormorants are looking for an easy meal. Because they spawn in shallow water, the redfin have nowhere to hide. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. As well as redfin, carp and eel are also on the menu. This one-time sewage outflow is now home to around 60 species of freshwater fish. All this diversity within the city is impressive. But to find Tokyo's wildest side, you must follow the Tamagawa westwards into the mountains. Although sparsely populated, these mountains are an integral part of the metropolis. The forest acts like a giant sponge, soaking up and then releasing moisture. The streams eventually empty into a deep lake, which supplies Tokyo with over a fifth of its fresh water. But as well as quenching the city's thirst, the forest also provides a home for wild animals. And if anything, Tokyo's Wild West End is getting wilder. As their children move out to find work in the city, older residents can only wonder as nature moves back in. For the inquisitive, abandoned houses are an irresistible temptation. So too are any long-forgotten orchards. By November, persimmons are plentiful, and the brazen monkeys are the first to help themselves. It's soon apparent, however, that the fruits aren't quite as juicy as they look. Still loaded with tannins, they leave a bitter taste in the mouth. A couple of bites is about all she can stomach. Fortunately, the macaque's throwaway habits are a gift to other animals. Biting the fruit leaves the flesh exposed, which speeds up the ripening process. Persimmons are packed with glucose, and the longer they sit on the ground, the sweeter they become. With winter approaching, tanuki are looking to fatten up. They can put on several extra kilos. And they're not the only ones with a sweet tooth. A badger has emerged from its den to join the feast. And although they're small, Japanese martins are more than ready to scrap for their share. It's not long before the sugary treats are catching the attention of an altogether bigger beast. A moon bear. Also known as an Asian black bear, this rare and secretive animal is Tokyo's largest wild inhabitant. Smaller creatures like civets must wait their turn. They don't have to wait long. Despite their size, bears are easily spooked. A passing car is enough to send the trespasser hurrying back to the woods. If Tokyo's life cycle begins with cherry blossom, then it ends in equally spectacular fashion with a blaze of autumn foliage. Koyo, as it's known here, is nature's final flourish. Within a month, many of Tokyo's plants and animals will be going into a 3-month winter lockdown. To the casual eye, Tokyo is all about us. But look beyond the crowds, and you'll find a surprising range of wild animals, thriving in the gaps. It's a parallel world of vicious assassins, gentle giants, and clever thieves. Of strange transformers, hard-working parents, and living jewels. It's a world in which humans are only part of the picture. And that is a thing to celebrate.